Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Flying Cat Marketing interview series. Today I'm speaking to Federico Jorge, who is the founder at StackAgainst, a productized service that offers comparison pages to SaaS companies. And we're going to be talking exactly about that today, the right way to create competitor comparison pages to drive revenue. Hey, Federico, how are you?
Hey, all good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, yeah, of course. I'm really glad to have you on today and to talk about this topic, which I really like. We've done these pages as well for our clients, and there's always a little bit of pushback for some reason, even though it just seems like a gold
Yeah,
mine. So I think it's going to be really valuable to be able to talk about them today.
fantastic.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, so tell me a little bit about what are comparison pages, just so that everybody listening is on the same page as us and we know what we're referring to.
Yeah, comparison pages for me are first and foremost sales pages, right? I come from the conversion side of things. Like, I'm a copywriter, that's my background. And in the copywriting world, you're pretty sure I'm familiar with this. There's this whole conversation about copy versus content. And if you agree with that distinction, I would say comparison pages are absolutely on the copy side of things because the main goal is just pushing people on their last stage, right? People that are actively considering buying from you or a competitor, and you just need to give them the final push in the right direction, make sure that they're qualified for your product, for your offer, and then that's it. You get into whatever your CTA is. Sign up, get a demo, download, whatever it is. But it's just that final element of persuasion when somebody's considering your options and they're evaluating you versus a different alternative.
Yeah. So what kind of pages fall under these? Obviously, it's if it's comparison page, it's going to be tool X versus tool Y, but there's going to be different kinds as well, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. You have the common one is like you said, product A versus product B, HubSpot versus Salesforce, Zendesk versus Intercom. There's many of those, but then there are different angles. You have the product versus all technology, which is another great way to position your product. And I've seen this, for example, I've seen Toast do this. Toast is a point of sales tool, and they're basically replacing cash registers. And they used to have, I don't think they have them anymore, but they used to have comparison, basically contrasting what they allow you to do versus what you can do with a cash register. And in that case, the contrast is even bigger. It's kind of like the car versus horse myth from Henry Ford. And the comparison page really allows you to challenge the status quo, challenge the old way of doing things. So you have that angle as well. And then there's something that I've been trying to, like, I've been thinking about creating some content around this. And I think comparison pages are not necessarily always comparison pages. And a lot of products can leverage what is happening right now in their market, in their space, and just tell their story anchored on something that people are really struggling with right now. And a great example of Hey, the new email service by the Basecamp founders. And when I say the comparison page is not necessarily a comparison page, it's because they didn't build a classic Hey versus Gmail page, right? Or say, Hey versus Outlook or whatever. But their whole marketing was about telling people email is great, but all these companies basically turn email into something that we don't love anymore. And they called them out. They listed them. I do remember them having a very strong pre-launch landing page, which was kind of like this manifesto. This is what we believe in, and this is the kind of product that we're building based on these beliefs. And they called out all these competitors. They said Gmail, Google, Microsoft, Apple are turning email into a spam box, into an abuse of your privacy, into a way to just serve you more advertising. And Hey is not going to be any of that. Hey is going to recover everything that you love about email and put your experience at the front of the product. So they use that status quo and that feeling around email today to describe how they're going to solve that problem in a better way.
I love that because it's a comparison not to another tool, even though they call out their competitors, but it's actually a comparison to operating model or a mindset or just a way of doing things. And in that sense, it's like thought leadership, actually. It's just saying we have this strong opinion and this is how we stand out compared to how everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And what I really like about that is that it really captures the emotion that people are feeling towards this is the problem that I have, this is how I'm solving it today, but I don't really like it. If somebody's looking for an alternative or if somebody's looking for a product like yours, it means they're going through some kind of a pain. Could
Yeah.
be smaller, bigger pain, whatever, but they're going through something. And that's always attached to this feeling of not being comfortable with your current solution. And if you can capture that's really strong. We always talk about customers make emotional choices and then they back that up with logical ideas. And we always repeat this as marketers, but we're not really telling people how that really looks like and how you can actually use that for your marketing. And I think this is a very good example of how do you capture that sentiment. If you can do your research, if you can stay close to your market, if you can participate in communities where people that might be your buyers are talking about these issues and really understand what they're going through and then present a solution, or even better, even before you're talking about marketing, build a solution that is made around solving the problem in a different way without all these struggles, then what better emotional connection than that? Because
Yeah.
you're talking directly to the heart of the problem and the emotional side of the problem. And another great example right now is Coda, and they have this big campaign, Enough of This Shit, and they're really contrasting the way they do things versus a spreadsheet. And I think that's genius too.
Yeah. Love that. So, do you have any examples of competitor pages or comparison pages, let's say, that you've created recently and what kind of results they might have generated?
Yeah, we do. And unfortunately, it's tough to talk about results because some of these are NDAs and
Yeah.
kind of tricky to get customers to talk about these too much. And then on the other side, we haven't been really great at capturing these, but we sell two different kinds of assets. Actually, we're creating bigger packages, but the two content assets that we deliver are the classic comparison page is the one that we've been talking about, product A versus product B, but we also do another piece that is more middle of the funnel piece for people that are still coming up with a short list of alternatives that might solve their problem. And this is the classic 8 alternatives to Slack, for example, or maybe 8 different apps to solve your project management challenges, right? And it's the roundup article. We call it the roundup article, where we review multiple alternatives to solve a specific solution. And both of those target different stages of awareness. The roundup article, like I said, is better for more of a middle of the funnel stage where people are still evaluating their options and creating that initial short list of alternatives. And then the product versus product comparison is more bottom of the funnel. It's for a reader that is really close to making a decision, and they might even sign up for you and a different product and test both alternatives and see how both products perform. And they have different uses in terms of SEO. And to give you some ideas of results, so let me open, I have some notes here. For example, we built a whole strategy around competitor comparison pages for Cloudways. We did 13 comparison pages against different products. So Cloudways versus Hostinger, WP Engine, Bluehost, different alternatives. And we also built a page targeting the keyword Cloudways alternative for people that are also coming to the SERPs with that keyword, so they can basically control the discussion around their own keyword. And Some of these pages are recent, so we don't even have a clear idea on how they're ranking right now. But I can tell you that for the first 5 that we did, and that includes versus WP Engine, which is a clear winner of the lot, Kinsta, SiteGround, Bluehost, and cPanel, we had a combined lead count of, right now, it's 993 free trials.
Okay, wow. And this was just things that you've published recently.
Those 5 are a bit older. So those 5, I think we started working with Cloudways around July last year. So the first page, the WP Engine page, went in July, I think. Then we did a second batch. We did 4 comparison pages for more. And those went live in November, December last year. And then we did a third batch, and those are really recent. So they just launched those, I think, a few weeks ago. But for the first 5, that's a total of almost 1,000 free leads. And right now they have 926 sales just from the comparison pages, which is
Wow,
a really, yeah, it's a really
that's
interesting
quite
number.
an impact.
Yes.
How are you distributing these pages? Is it only SEO?
No, great question. SEO is one of the angles, and each one of these pages are ranking differently for their own set of keywords. Then the Cloudways team is also running PPC campaigns to these pages. And then another approach that I gotta recognize Cloudways here. This is their idea, and that's something that we're probably going to be using for other clients. They decided, and this goes back to Lab, to understanding your customer. They figured out, they knew that their space is really competitive. And that's something that maybe doesn't happen in your space, but in their case, this is hosting services. So it's really hard to stand out in that space. And I think this comes down to so many users having had issues in the past with previous hosting vendors, that when they need to choose a new provider, they have this huge distrust, and it's really hard for them to confidently say, okay, this is a vendor that I need to go with. This is a company that I'm going to trust from now on. So because of that, they decided to, other than putting the comparison pages on their footer, which is another classic entry point to these landing pages, they decided to create these welcome bars at the top of their web, targeting different competitors. So depending on where you were coming from, it could be different social campaigns or maybe different search terms. It would welcome you with something like, are you migrating from WP Engine? Or are you considering WP Engine? Or maybe, are you switching from Bluehost, right? Then see how we compare. And that would lead you straight away to the comparison page. And again, because they've identified that a lot of users are coming to their website with that specific question. How are you different from X, Y, or Z product? So they channel all that traffic directly to these assets, and the comparison pages were doing the heavy lifting of turning those buyers into free trials and then customers.
That's such an amazing technique, is personalizing based on the campaign and the search. So distribution as well is key to making sure that these pages work the right way. Tell me a little bit about your process for creating the pages, because in the world of B2B, where you want really badly for your product to be unique, sometimes that's very hard to do. Very hard to find the way that it's unique. So what is your process for creating pages and really showing how things are different?
Yeah, I could show you. We have a graphic detailing our process, but basically it has 4 different stages. We have a discovery stage, which is even we don't need to be working with an actual client to go through this discovery stage. And it's basically meeting with the potential client, understanding a little bit more about their space, who their competitors are, why they want to target those competitors in particular. And then we usually do a free SEO report analyzing standard keywords
Yeah.
against different competitors. And when I say standard, it's because when users are searching for alternatives on Google, they usually try the same variations, right? So let's say you want to compare your product against HubSpot. So people are going to be using HubSpot alternative to HubSpot reviews, HubSpot free alternative, and slightly different variations of that. So we ran all those keywords for different competitors that we discussed with them on a call. And then based on that, we can suggest our best strategy. We could say, and also it depends on how they're planning on using these pages and the SERPs as well. Because if the SERP is highly competitive, maybe they want to push harder on PPC so they can shortcut and not wait for SEO to kick in, right?
Yeah.
If they are more sales-oriented company rather than a self-serve product. So you also might want to focus on the competitors that people are asking you about on sales calls. So maybe SEO might not be the best approach there, but we always put that SEO layer as part of the analysis, and then we suggest them. These are the competitors that you should be focusing on. And again, trying to mix the opportunities, organic opportunities, and also your business strategy and what you're trying to get out of these comparison pages. Once we agree to that, kind of like also defines the package, because with us, you can do a single page, you can do 3 pages at once, you can do multiple pages, depending on how much you want to invest as well. So we define the package, and then we dive deep into research mode. We go online and mostly looking at review sites, and we analyze what people are saying about each one of these competitors, what they love and what they hate about them. And then after all of this analysis, we create one brief per comparison page where we basically tell you or suggest your perfect positioning for this comparison is going to be this, right? And it's a combination of mostly 3 things. Something that you're great at, which we talk about this during your onboarding stage. Something that customers care about, which is something that we identify from research. And then something that your competitors can match or they're not saying right now. And the combination of all those 3 things, it's going to be what shapes the big idea for your comparison page. We share those briefs with the client, feedback, reviewing what's necessary. And then once we agree, like this is the path forward, then we start with the copywriting. And then it looks pretty similar to any copywriting project. We deliver the drafts always in wireframe format, so people can see how the content is going to look laid out on a page. And then also depending on what package you choose to do with us, it either stops there, we send you the draft, you design it and set it live. Our clients are mostly SaaS companies, and they usually have design and coding in-house. Or we could also do the design, give you the final asset already designed, and then you code it up and launch it on your website.
I love it. That's a pretty good process, especially if you do it every time. Do you do the positioning against this tool every single time? If you have one client, Cloudways, I think you said was your client.
Yep.
Every time you do a comparison page, do you revisit the positioning, its specific positioning in general, and then versus whatever you're comparing it to?
Yes, exactly. We have 14 different briefs for Cloudways. And on top of that, we also do like these major pain points, benefits, and objections reports, which it kind of gives us an across all competitors idea of what's happening in your space. But yeah, we do one brief per comparison page. And it's pretty smart what you just said, because sometimes, like, I think one of the biggest problems right now with how some SaaS companies are building these comparison pages is that they just create a template and then they switch the headline. So instead of saying compare HubSpot versus Zendesk, it's going to say compare HubSpot versus Intercom. And that's all that they change, and maybe slightly changing the subhead. And then that's it. The rest of the page looks exactly the same for each competitor. And I think that's doing yourself a disservice and your readers a disservice, because readers are smart and they're doing their own research. And the fact that they're going to these comparison pages on your site confirms that they're doing their research and they either want to learn more or they want to validate what they already know about you and your competitors. So if you just give them a copy paste approach, they're going to call you on that. They're going to immediately say, this is just a lazy effort. That's it. If you're not able to give readers something new, a piece of information that is new to them or that confirms what they have in their head already, then they're going to close the page, they're going to go away, they're probably not going to come back. Yeah. So when you're thinking through the strategy and when you're executing these landing pages, you need to be specific on each comparison page. And that sometimes even means slightly changing your own approach. And it always needs to be on brand, because you're not going to say, we are the cheapest. I'm just going to come up with an example around pricing. That doesn't mean pricing comparison is the best approach. But you can't say we're the cheapest option on one page and then we're the premium option on a different page, because it like collides with your own marketing. But if you identify one of your strengths is speed, and you identify that one of your competitors has a problem with being slow, whatever, then you can use that for that comparison page. Again, if it's something that your customers care about. But what happens if you're looking at a different competitor and they're also really great at that, at speed, and customers say that, I love how fast HubSpot is or Intercom is. So then at that point, you can't go head to head against them with the speed messaging, because you might lose. So you got to pick your battle and you got to tweak your messaging. So maybe it's not about speed, but it's about flexibility or agility or something else that's still on brand for you, but you're changing the conversation slightly, or you're adapting the conversation to make your product, put your product on the spotlight and make your product win in terms of the battle that you picked against that competitor.
Yeah, it becomes pretty obvious why it's so important to make each page unique, and it's not something you can just create a template for, because then it just does not serve the purpose that the page was built for.
Exactly. You can have a framework, which basically that's the process that we built, right? A framework is about what's the number one question that we need to answer on this page. How are we going to answer that question in a compelling way? How many things do we need to say here to answer that question, and how are we going to structure the page to be able to answer that question? So it's more like a strategic way on how to think about these comparison pages, but you can't really templatize that, and it's not a good approach to just repeat the copy and just change the name of the competitor here or there.
Yeah. Federico, I've learned a lot today. If people want to learn more about comparison pages, I know they can connect with you on LinkedIn, and I recommend they do, but what's another good place to learn from you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is a great place. I'm more active on LinkedIn lately. And then our website, pretty easy, StackAgainst.com. You can see our value prop there. You can see how we think about these comparison pages, learn more about our process, see our packages, and get in touch.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Federico, for your time. If whoever is watching or listening to this episode, if you liked it, leave a comment, let us know, share it with a friend or colleague, and give it and subscribe. And thank you again for your time, Federico. I'll see you next time.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.